Francis. I want to follow up on the question that was asked in the main conference room about, you said there's no model possible for consciousness. So that could be axiom number one, no model possible. And then I thought, well, what is that has no model in mathematics? What can be defined as having no model? That you can't build a model. Well, for instance, the space of all mathematics, everything that's possible in mathematics, you can't possibly build a model, even with a quantum computer. According to the Gödel theorem, there's always be structure you can't reach. And so I just wanted your opinion on that. Maybe
that's getting nerdier and nerdier.
Yeah, so maybe that's what it feels like, the space of mathematics. Maybe that's what it feels like. Just wanted your opinion on that.
I think there is something strange about the space of mathematics and mathematical ideas or concepts. For a mathematician who discovers, let's say, for instance, new properties of the prime numbers, for instance, he or she is under the impression that they are discovering a new territory, that they are exploring, is that the territories they are discovering pre-existed their exploration. So where do these mathematical ideas have their existence? In which realm? It's a realm in which there is no time, obviously, because, for instance, the number pi has always been and will always be the number pi. And the number pi, let's assume we had a different intelligent species somewhere in the universe with which we have never communicated, but they are intelligent and they develop mathematics. And if they would come across the equivalent of pi, it would be the same pi with the same value. Since they have never communicated with us, where does this pi exist? So that hints at a realm of existence which is different than the phenomenal existence, the phenomenal realm in which everything we perceive, usually through our senses and through our mind, exists. Because there is no time in this realm of mathematical ideas. So other realms, but still, and I come to the model of consciousness, still in this realm of mathematical ideas, there are distinctions. There is no time, unlike the realm of phenomena, but there are distinctions because the number pi is different from the number e, for instance, or from the number 1. So there are distinctions. Then when we move even further towards oneness, then all distinctions get abolished, and that's the realm of consciousness. If we take the description that Plato gives in his this metaphor of the cave, the sun, the oneness of the sun would be the consciousness. Then at the extreme opposite, there is a back wall of the cave. And in front of the opening of the cave, people, animals, passerby. And their shadow is cast against the wall in the back of the cave. For Plato, what we see, the world of phenomena, these here that we perceive, is like the shadows of on the back of the cave. And the real world would be like the world of mathematical ideas, in which there is no time, but still distinctions. But I'm trying to give you a model, but in this model, consciousness is the sun, the one light, the one reality. Everything else is a kind of a projection out of this oneness. You wanted a model. I called Plato for help.
Hi, thanks. Along those lines, I was wondering if you could make a distinction, since we sort of operate at a 5% conscious awareness and a 95% subconscious, and then we hear about the unconscious, kind of where consciousness doesn't create itself, it wells up from sort of an unknown depth. Is that unconscious, and is that different than subconscious, which is sort of a shadow, download, suppressed self? I was just wondering if you are, along those lines, distinguish subconscious, unconscious. I realize there's a primordial womb sort of behind anything we know, or is it really our intuitive self?
Unfortunately, I have a background in hard science, and for me, I stick to the facts of experience. And if you tell me about something which can never be experienced, how can I say anything about it? So by definition, some inconsciousness can never be experienced, right? So it's not scientific for me. Now, subconscious, something which is subconscious, that would be something else. That would be, in my book, that would be something that is somehow experienced, but kind of in the twilight, and as a result of this lack of clarity, misconstrued to be something else. Like in the twilight, a rope on the floor, mistakenly believed to be a snake, right? So there is still something experienced, but on top of that which is really experienced, we superimpose the snake. We don't stick to the fact, because the fact is something in the twilight which looks like a snake, but we are not sure it's a snake because it's not moving, right? So we are not thorough enough in our looking at it. So that would correspond to subconscious. Something which is subconscious is not completely unconscious. But there is a lack of clarity about it. For instance, feelings are in fashion. But what is a feeling? Let's start with the question, what is a belief? It is different to have the concept of Jesus being the only Son of God and believing that to be the case. Right? There is a distinction between the concept of it and the belief that it is true. In other words, what a belief is a concept, but which a kind of attachment to it in the form of a validation of the concept to be true. in the realm of feelings, what is a feeling? When we try to experientially see what it is in fact a bodily sensation. Right? It's just that we add to it, we superimpose some sense of me to it. You see? That me as this bodily sensation. I attach a me to something which, from a purely experiential point of view, is a bodily sensation. And then in turn, this bodily sensation may evoke images in the mind, of course, and thoughts, fears, desires. So, the problem with psychology, especially since Freud, who, according to my teacher, Jean Klein, I wouldn't take here the responsibility to be psychologically incorrect, but Jean Klein used to say that Freud was a little twisted. So I don't have to buy these theories of subconscious and, I was interested in this when I was in my late teens. So here was my take on the unconscious and the subconscious. I don't know what that has to do with the matter at hand here. What we are interested in here is, I guess, inner peace and happiness. That's the question. That's the mission of life, the meaning of life. What is it, if we ask the question, what is it that all human beings seek without any exception unless they have found it? It's happiness, or inner peace, or absence of worries. Even those who pretend that's not the case, so whatever they are doing, that's what they seek. Even people who complain all the time, they enjoy complaining. They seek the happiness, so they are complaining. And those who seek it through pain and suffering and effort, and it is the universal engine. So it's very simple. The goal of life is in fact made clear through our actions, through our choices. And all we have to do is look within. What is it that I really want? What is it that I seek? And if we are 100% honest with ourselves, we discover that we seek happiness. And there is nothing wrong with that. Because to seek happiness is not egoistic. To seek happiness is the best thing we can do for mankind. Because unless we are happy, we have nothing to share of value. We only have dry concepts, dry belief systems. The old recipes we have inherited from our parents, from our educators, the old recipes who don't work. And it would have been faster for us to look at them, realize they were not happy, and that therefore their recipes didn't work. And we wouldn't have to follow them early on and make all these mistakes in our life. I am answering a little bit on a tangent here. I'm sorry. That's what I do. I love tangents. I'm a mathematician.
Sir, how did you integrate Ouspensky with Advaita Vedanta? If you did, and if you didn't, what reason did you give
I'm
yourself?
sorry. I don't know Ouspensky. I know the name, of course, but I don't know the teaching. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. My teacher used to say that the last words that Gurdjieff told his disciple as he was dying was in French, "Je vous laisse dans de beaux draps," which means in French, I leave you in a really bad shape. So I'm sorry that you asked me about what I know, right? But it's not first-hand knowledge, so. Yes?
Are you ready for the next question?
I am.
Okay, thank you.
Who is it?
Me.
Yes.
First of all, thank you for your work and your teaching. I want to talk about a moment in your sort of lining up the way you get to where you get to, where I get to a different place. I just want to explore it together. It's not like one's right, one's wrong. Sorry, I'll speak louder. How you, as you're lining up the way you get to consciousness, it's all consciousness. And the dialogue that started this morning with concepts of deity and consciousness, we could go down that road. I'd rather instead share some of my experience and then ask for your reflections on it, which is when I've gone into my deepest experiences of meditation, prayer, I feel like I am experiencing a way of just consciousness beyond all space, beyond all time, but then beyond all language we could put to consciousness, and even the word consciousness itself doesn't make sense. It's something we can say in our language. It's a concept we can express because we live on this earth plane as human beings. And I find even the concept of consciousness, that we have language, that we put a word to it. We're pointing to something that's not the word, we know that. But that there is a way of beyond what we can even say about consciousness that is, to me, it's a more humble way to look at it and say, wow, I can't even express this. And when I get into that state, it's beyond anything in language. It's beyond even the word consciousness or anything we're pointing to with consciousness. There are connections happening. There are all kinds of things happening. And it feels like that experience, I honor where you get to in your meditation, in your process. That's where I get to in my process now. And who knows where I'll get to next. And so the question is, I don't come back from that with an assurance that I can express in language, even a concept as clear as, I at least know I'm conscious. Because even that is expressed in two-valued logic. Either I'm conscious or I'm not, or there's a reflecting body. Who is that who's seeking? Well, if I ask the questions, who's seeking? I'm already in two-valued logic, which itself feels like may not be the way that stuff works at higher and more expanded levels. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about how you get beyond two-valued logic, human language, to even talk about consciousness with any assurance that that is anything ultimate.
How do we go to the experience of consciousness? First, is by asking ourselves the question, is there consciousness right now?
In my experience now, as a human being living on this earth plane in this moment, I would say yes.
Yeah, but even you say my experience as a human being, no, because the human being is from the past. The consciousness experience is in the now, and we derive this certainty that there is consciousness from the experience of consciousness. We derive it from hearsay. We don't derive it from our education or from the past. We know that we are conscious right now through some channels that may be mysterious, but which nevertheless delivers a 100% certainty.
Can I ask, what do you mean by the word conscious? We know we are conscious now. That's a word pointing to something. What is it pointing to?
The fact that there is, the fact that I am, the fact that there is existence, the fact that there is something rather than nothing. The fact that, as an ancient philosopher used to put it, being is, and non-being is not. That's immediate.
That would be...
The human being appears later. The human being is either an inference, but it is not an experience in the moment when we experience consciousness as a fact. The human being is simply a putting together of a multiplicity of experiences, past and current, phenomenal experiences that lead to the conclusion there is a human being. And because all these facts appear in consciousness, consciousness is primeval to the human being, is prior to the human being. And therefore, we have to ask the question, what am I fundamentally? Am I fundamentally consciousness or a human being? And you'll see that fundamentally, we are consciousness. Because the human being appears to consciousness and not the other way around.
How would you answer someone who says, fundamentally, I'm a soul that is in transmigration through lifetimes and experiences, and comes back and remembers and leaves and on?
That is a model, these are nice concepts. But if we stick to our experience of consciousness doesn't come with all that stuff. Our experience is just that right now. Where is transmigration right now? Where is Jesus? Where is hell and eternal damnation? Where is that in our experience? Right now there is only consciousness. All the rest is concepts. Like unicorns, they are nice concepts.
Unless, as scientists, we find evidence, data. I mean, like you, I started in a highly atheist family, so those are my roots. I totally get this. But as data comes out that may show that reincarnation is the way the world works, as scientists, Someday that may be part of our scientific understanding of the way the world works.
Science knows only very little, and science is an open process, and we may discover more phenomenal laws. We certainly will discover more laws of nature, more phenomenal laws in the future. But nevertheless, one day I had dinner, a Christmas dinner, here in Northern California, in Berkeley. And I was seated near the Dean of Physical Science, was an acquaintance of mine at UC Berkeley. And he's a quantum physicist, Jeffrey Chu. And I asked him the question, since in science we know a phenomenon only as well as we know the measuring instrument, apparatus, and since everything we know it through consciousness, and since we are not interested in knowing consciousness, at least in the Western culture, what can we know for certain? You see? He was silent. For a while, actually, when we met, we would talk about the education of our children, but we wouldn't talk about scientific or philosophical questions. But 5 years later, we had, again for Christmas, a long conversation, and then we reconnected. And 3 years later, he came to one of my talks in Berkeley, and he said, I have no objections to what you are saying. You see, because the field of science is limited to the field of phenomena. And what we are talking about here is something which is non-phenomenal, but nevertheless, which is the real background of our experience. It is the background of our life. It is the background of that which we are. You see, so all the rest is either observed phenomena, or these are models that need to be verified or falsified through experience. So I'm not going to address things that are not within my field of experience. And I've never experienced reincarnation, as far as I know.
Thank you for the clarification on as far as you know.
And so by saying that, I am very aware that I am spiritually incorrect.
Hi. Throughout my life, I've had periodic dreams, nightly type dreams, in which I was instructed in or experienced directly non-dual truth. And always wondered whether I would wake up from these dreams awake, which did not happen. But in recent years, I went to a retreat with Adyashanti and had my first waking life experience of that. But I'm a psychologist, and of course I'm sort of interested in this and people in general. And so I was wondering, if dreams non-dual type dreams preceded your own experience of awakening, but in particular, I'm wondering if after awakening, your dreams still seem, dreamlike, or whether there's a non-dual awareness even within your nightly dreams.
A few different comments. first comment is really a glimpse of our true nature is a glimpse of pure consciousness. And therefore, it's a glimpse that takes place in the absence of phenomenal perception. Therefore, we cannot say that a glimpse happens in the waking state, in the dream state, or in the deep sleep state. Because it happens, in fact, in what in India they call the fourth state, Turiya, which is the background of all states. And therefore, the states that precede us, the glimpse, can be waking state, dream state, or deep sleep state. There is this sage, French sage. He went to India and met Sri Atmananda Krishna there, became his disciple. And he had a dream in which he was he was put on trial, and he was sentenced to death. And then he was taken to the place of execution, and he was executed. And then he woke up, but instead of waking up in the waking state, he woke up to his eternity. So that's an example of
yes, that's exactly the type
an
of
awakening that takes place, originates apparently from the dream state, but in fact, it's of a different nature. Now, regarding the question about how the content of dreams change over time as the worries leave us, in the same way as the worries leave us in the waking state, they leave us also in the dream state. So the nightmares disappear, and sometimes there might be some residues of the past that flare up. For instance, I used to smoke, and I gave up smoking. And sometimes I have this dream that I have resumed smoking, and I think, oh shit, you have done that again. And that wakes me up. And then I say, oof. Am I doing that? Yeah. Am I doing that? Yeah, no.
What I'm curious about is, so I think you're giving me a partial answer here.
I'm going to give you another thing.
Oh, sure. Okay.
My teacher used to say, I don't dream. And there was this friend, he inadvertently entered his room while he was having his siesta. And he was having his siesta, and he was saying, oh, beautiful, beautiful. So he may not have been dreaming, but to me and to us, it felt very much like some kind of a dream. Last comment about the dream. It seems that there are two different phases in the night. The first phase, it's kind of the kind of dreams that are there are the housekeeping of the brain. You see, so things that have not been fully experienced, fully digested during the day or during from the past come back, and everything gets reorganized. Housekeeping, and then the brain is open, and then there is a second part of the night, and in this openness, we are open to different source. And often, for instance, great discoveries by scientific or artistic have been made in this second part of the night. Yes. One of my teachers of mathematics, a field medalist. I was there. He was telling us, Lorenz Schwarz, the father of the theory of distributions for the mathematicians here. And he was telling us that he has this intuition upon waking up in the middle of the night, and he has this idea. And then all the rest of his thing was just the, pulling. It's like you have an algae that comes out of the water. Seems like a little thing like that. Then you pull, and you pull up a big tree. And so the rest of his theory came up from this single, the discovery of the design of the benzene molecule by Kekulé, the chemist, C6H6. That was also in a dream. Before that, they saw all the molecules like linear, like methane or butane or whatever, and they didn't figure out how. And then he saw in this dream this circle form, and then he got it. Yeah. So this type of intuition, or it was told that Mozart saw his last symphony, Jupiter Symphony, in one single vision, the entire thing.
Yeah, this is very common. I know Mendelev's table of elements came to him all in completely whole in a dream. But back to my question. Within your own dreams, does that non-dual awareness remain in the background during these dreams, or can you get caught? So it sounds like sometimes you can still be caught in the kind of the drama of just as we experience when we're not awake in waking life.
I think once we have experienced this thing, we never get caught 100% in the drama. It's like I often say my mother, she could never go to the movie theaters because she thought it was real, so she would cry every time. She would be miserable, you see. But normal people, unlike my mother, who have been to a movie, even if as children the first time, you see, the first time I took my kid to the Gremlins, in the beginning it's very nice, the movie, and then they become like that. So at that moment, he jumped on my lap, But now if we go to the movie, he doesn't jump on my lap any longer. So at some point, the movie is a movie. Mm-hmm. In order to enjoy the movie, you have to believe it to be real to some extent, you see? Mm-hmm. But you have in the background this knowledge that it is a movie.
So even within your dreams,
so you never go deep into it, because you have this background of peace and of ultimate safety. Mm-hmm. It's like if you think of the death of your body, it's no longer this unbearable agony or fear. It's something, some kind of more of a. I have this friend. I saw him, William Samuel. For some who have read his book, A Guide to Awareness and Tranquility. I visited with him shortly before his death, and I asked him about death. He didn't know he was going to die that soon after seeing me, but he told me some kind of joyful curiosity, joyful interest. It's so far from the... Anyway.
Yeah. So even in the example where you found yourself smoking in the dream, there's still a sense that...
Yes, but in the grand scheme of things, smoking, there are things like smoking, paying taxes that are not pleasant. Mm-hmm. Going to the dentist, root canals,
Okay.
But it's not the ultimate disappearance. That is out of the picture for good. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Two topics. One, you mentioned that what everybody is after is happiness, peace.
Peace, yeah.
I tend to agree with that, and I learned it a while back, and I made it my sole purpose to be at peace. And I'm there, except when my body aches. And I can maintain it to a certain extent, but sometimes pain is a big stressor. It is not emotional pain, it is physical pain.
Yes.
That's topic number one. What do you have to say to that?
What I have to say is that pain has two functions, as you know, as an MD. That the first function is the survival of the body. Those of our distant ancestors who didn't experience pain have not lived long enough to reach the age to procreate, right? So through natural selection, they have been eliminated. So we are the heirs of those who experience pain. So pain is a good thing, in fact, for the body. We burn ourselves as children, we fall, and then we don't burn ourselves any longer, and we don't fall. We are more careful. It teaches us how to preserve the integrity of the body. Now, there is a spiritual value also to pain, which is to, at some point, to tell us, this body is just a vehicle. At some point, it becomes a lemon. Sometimes before it becomes a lemon, it has an accident. And don't be attached to it. Don't identify with your car. So that's the spiritual message of pain. But I agree with you. However, if we experience physical pain without the added charge or load of psychological suffering, already 50% of the pain is eliminated.
Yes.
But I'm not here to say that physical pain doesn't exist. And I've seen my teacher in pain. I've been in pain, physical pain, this body. So we all know that. That's part of the human predicament, which is the predicament of our human body.
It was also a teacher to install in me the awareness that in preparation for that detachment, to this ultimate detachment, all I had to create was peace. All I had to be is ready in peace.
Yes.
For that shift. Second topic, when I have a discussion with a patient or with a student, and the subject, I'll give you an example. Everybody has angels these days. Angels that tell them where to park. Angels which angels that are commodities.
Parking angels.
Yeah,
I like that one.
Parking angels and commodities that are very useful. So I was asking somebody, you must have demons too if you have angels. And I got up the other day, and I had been working on a painting for a long time, and the painting changed from mountains to rivers to this and to that. And I woke up last Sunday automatically with this discussion in my brain, my mind. And I'm colorblind, and I have never taken a painting class, and I ended up painting what my wife thought was a Buddha in meditation, with a demon in one side and an angel in another. And then it evolved into a self-portrait with both aspects of the question in there, in total meditative mode, in total automaticity. And there were some characters that I didn't even see in the painting till I took a picture. And I sent it out for the opinion of some friends, and they saw those things, which is a beautiful, to me, surrender of how higher consciousness works through us instead of me working through the expression of it.
No comment.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's also about the happiness, right? Because we probably all more or less feel that longing and not being fulfilled, but there's something missing, and we're not sure what it is, but there's always something missing. However happy we get, then later on something else is missing, so it almost seems like you need to forget about yourself somehow, so you don't have to think about what you're missing. Like you don't worry about that or that feeling of missing something or longing or whatever, not having enough love in life or whatever it is. So it's almost like we have this natural ache in us to, it's because we're not united with our own self or. But I'm just wondering, like, just if you're in action of love, is maybe that action component needs to be there too, because we can think a lot about it.
Sorry, you are wondering what?
The action, like maybe we don't take enough action of love, where we are in some action of love. Maybe it's too still, and that's why. We don't wake up, or because we can have the knowledge about it, we can have maybe a glimpse, but it still feels like oneself as a human is still not happy or awoken because something is stuck. And I don't know if it may be a little bit of the action part, because a lot of us maybe get it in the mind and understand it more and more and have insights and whoa, and through whatever. And even maybe emotionally feel a little great sometimes or wow, but it's like, and we all, of course, we do have love in our lives. We do loving actions in our life, but so I think maybe there's too much.
What can you formulate your question?
Yeah.
In a nutshell?
What about some action? Do you have any recommendation of actions you can do? Or what did you do to wake up? Was it mainly meditation, contemplation? Did you go out and do selfless service? Or do you have anything that you did where you just kind of reminding to stay in your heart all the time? Like, how did you integrate it in your body and become it and not just know it, be it? How did you become it, be it?
Understanding.
Or discover it for always. Not just for a glimpse, but
understanding. Understanding comes when we are interested in understanding. You said you talked about this sense of lack, and you said, as human beings, we have this sense of lack. We are not happy. And it is perhaps because as long as we believe to be a human being, happiness will elude us. Because the fundamental mistake we are making is to believe to be this human being, meaning to be this human body. What you are really, before you are this human body, you are this intelligence who is hearing these words right now and who understands them. You are that before you are this human body. And the question is, if this intelligence which is hearing these words could be happy, that would be the end of the problem, right? The body doesn't need to be happy. Only this intelligence which is hearing these words needs to be happy. That's sufficient. Now, perhaps the only thing that prevents this intelligence which is hearing these words right now, which is the real you, from being happy, is that this intelligence believes to be this human body. And that as long as this intelligence believes to be this human body, it limits itself. It carves itself as a fragment out of its wholeness. And as a result, her wholeness is missed. And the missing of the wholeness is the longing for it. It is a longing for this happiness, which is a longing for your wholeness. But the truth is that this intelligence is already whole and complete. And that the missing of her wholeness is only her choice of entering a dream, of being just this human ant crawling on the surface of the earth. A human ant crawling on a speck of dust, lost in this universe. You see. And forgetting the infinity of this intelligence which you are, which we all are, you see. That's the lost paradise. That's the lost heaven. It is not out there in the sky. It is right here, right now, as this intelligence who is denying itself its infinity and at the same time knows its infinity. Both denying what it knows. And that creates a conflict, that creates action.